This is going to be your guide to using Chi-Yu in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. How do you follow up Chien-Pao? What does the special attacking Ruin legendary look like? Well, it's just a better stereotype of every special attacker, which actually makes it feel pretty weak. So with special attackers, you're going to see not the craziest special attack and speed at the same time, but an inflated special defense stat. We can see this on Pokemon like the Jolteon. Jolteon is going to have, a higher special defense than defense, and then good special attack and speed stats. And you see this on a lot of special attackers, even Fluttermane now. So Chi-Yu doesn't really feel as insane, and it's only just going to have like the same interactions between special attackers. Then it has a low defense with a really low hit points, so it's not like the inverse. That would have actually been really cool to see a special attacker with 120 innate defense, or maybe like better hit point defense combo, to where it actually doesn't have as crazy of a matchup against special attackers, but then does the same thing to physical attackers and like wins the matchup in weird kind of ways. So this thing can't do anything to physical Pokemon, but the idea behind special attackers hurting physical is that there's generally going to be less special defense in the game. So this Pokemon just, I think the theming kind of fell flat, and in the attempts of not trying to make it way too strong, the Game Freak designers just made it okay, and we're going to have to see if it's actually any good. So let's go straight to damage calculations, where, yeah, we actually just kind of dumpster on a Pokemon like the Jolteon. So Dark Pulse, 103, 122, Flamethrower is just going to be a pretty high KO, and we learned this a bit with Glimmora, that if you just go Modest Nature, Specs, 130 special attack, using a stab move, you can just one-shot a lot of things in the game, and Chi-Yu does that, but better because of Beads of Ruin. So we've been seeing this with all the other Ruin Pokemon. The most beneficial stat for that legendary is the one that ends up getting reduced for the other Pokemon. So special defense is reduced, which means you just do more damage. It comes out to a bit over a third more damage, so it's just a slightly more powerful Life Orb for free, which means 135 special attack with the choice specs, with the beads, means you're going to be one-shotting a lot of stuff. Let's go on over to the Silvally. Just a good damage analog of a Pokemon, drop it down to level 50, and yeah, if you're one-shotting Silvally, whatever your Pokemon is up to, it's doing a good job. So Flamethrower, close enough, that's a 95, so it's pretty wacky. And then we have to see what it does to the Fluttermane, because Fluttermane has weirdness going on with the low hit points but high special defense, and the KO is going to be pretty close. So yeah, Chi-Yu will send Pokemon straight to Nurse Joy, even Pokemon that have an inflated special defense stat because they are a special attacker. What about Sylveon? That's kind of an interesting one to think about. So Modest, let's get rid of that Throat Spray and turn it into a Choice Specs, just to kind of see what the Specs versus Specs matchup has. And then level 50. So Sylveon's pretty unique because it will be going for like high amounts of hit point investment, has a crazy special defense, and then we don't see the KO. Hyper Voice actually returns more damage on that neutral hit because our hit points are so low. So yeah, just like the low hit points, kind of not really making any sense because it's getting rid of that special defense edge we have against special attackers. Like, swapping the defense and hit points might have gotten more, or like I said, kind of balancing this out to where it played a little differently. Even if we go like Terra Fire, which is probably what you want to do on this just to kind of really lock up any of those crazy hits. You do find more neutrals on the Dark Pulse, I believe, but then like Fairy-type Pokemon, kind of problematic. But yeah, even then, like, you're not catching it on the Sylveon, but you are faster, so you do win the matchup. However, it just kind of shows like the damage numbers and some of these weird interactions aren't just like, yeah, Chi-Yu wins. Also, because Dark Fire isn't very common, we can take a quick look at the weaknesses. Fire, Ground, Rock, Water, and then losing that Fairy weakness off the Dark, pretty good. But yeah, Ground, Common, Rock, you don't really see it. Water, Common, Fighting, gets annoying. Decent amount of resistances, so I mean, like, it's an alright typing, you just don't want to be eating supers, and you're going to stumble into a good amount of supers. Now we can finally get into the moveset after we've kind of broken down where we want to get to on this Pokemon. So yeah, 90 base power on that Flamethrower, it's going to be awesome. You get access to the Heat Wave. And when you're boosting this much damage, that extra little percent matters, but you're playing with a little bit of accuracy. However, we have seen this in the past with Pokemon, where it's like Calm Mind strats, or Pokemon that are trying to get like that extra crazy snowballing damage, Mega Pokemon or something. They want to lay down the Heat Wave because that extra little damage can matter. And then Dark Pulse has that chance to flinch, and it's not going to be as powerful of a hit, so you always want to be swinging fire on that neutral. Dark Pulse is there because it's just going to be good stab. You can run the Overheat just to make sure anything that could maybe survive in some kind of weird way just gets completely blown up, and then you can like switch into a tank Pokemon and be fine. Weird thing about like choice specs in these bulkier metas we're seeing from like mid-late Generation 8 into Generation 9, because everything is just kind of slowed down and gotten tanky, is that, yeah, like, switching and resetting your specs, it's fine, and then you just need to keep getting there for the beneficial matchup and just one-shotting things on neutral. Psychic, it's good coverage. It's going to do things to the annoying Pokemon, like the fighting-type bulky Pokemon, poison Pokemon, which are also pretty bulky, and, yeah, like, you're just kind of on this. Terra-type, again, you go into the fire or the dark, depending on which one you think is going to be more relevant for the meta. Terra Fire is just going to kind of add more damage into your highest damage, and maybe even have some, like, crazy overheat shenanigans. Like, back-to-back overheat, Terra Fire, probably still finding KOs. And that'd just be something hilarious to throw out into the battle stadium. Other Terra types for the Terra Blast, I think you can just kind of, like, save that for a different kind of ace Pokemon and run the Chi-Yu as is. The weird thing is, like, 100 speed. It's not great, and if you just get outsped by like a Scarf physical attacker, you're folded, nothing you get to do about it. Even just naturally faster physical attacker is going to be very problematic for the Chi-Yu, and it can just get outsped, but we're in a slower game like I talked about, so this is also just a very powerful wall breaker at the same time on that specs. Type coverage gets a bit fancy. We just have like the natural Fire Dark, we splash in the Psychic. Going to have some not very effective hits, mostly dark type Pokemon and some kind of combos from there. Hydreigon just kind of hanging around. Man, like Dark Dragon ends up being really nasty as a type combo for a lot of things. We're like trying to piece together a 2 or a 3 type combo. Like it'll just pop up there and be kind of a problem, and it is fairly common, so that is kind of a problem. Going into the other coverage that we have on Chi-Yu, not really any. Again, like I've been talking about, we see this deliberately restricted coverage on a lot of these very specifically designed Pokemon. So you have to run the Psychic because it's the only other thing you get. As for some other moves, what about the Salac Berry? Because Scarf feels awkward on this Pokemon. Like, yeah, it's going to get you into those better speed tiers. It's going to make you feel pretty good, but then you're losing out on that choice specs, which is what's converting pretty much all of those one-hit KOs, getting that extra Life Orb damage. Well, we know Life Orb 135 has those failings and ends up hitting everything neutral for like 70-80%. But a 2-hit KO is a 2-hit KO, but having the freedom to choose and then not be locked in or be able to hit those super effective hits, that can be pretty nice, and you can kind of play around with it. So, sub Salac Berry, I'm feeling it. Yeah, because of flat rules, you have to like make sure some of these interactions actually end up working out. So what you want to do is go to a multiple of 4. That way you can land on that 1/4, get the Salac Berry proc on your 3rd substitute. I don't think it matters because like this base hit points is so low that even if you do it weird and like you're on 1 hit point sub, any kind of move is KOing you or any kind of priority move. But it's just nice to kind of play for the efficiency. So you do that, and then Flamethrower, Dark Pulse, Terra Blast, and now this is where we can look for the most super effective hits, comboing with our Fire Dark. An idea here just kind of shows like Fairy. Alright, we're hitting everything at least neutral. So Terra Fighting, surprisingly good because of what we saw with like the weird dark type interactions with like the fire and the dark comboing. Few not very effectives, like the only problem becomes Azumarill, and then everything else is actually looking pretty nice on that coverage. Like Fairy type Pokemon, we just kind of showed they don't want to eat crazy neutral fire hits. And then you go like, yeah, Stab Fighting, adding on to that's pretty good. The ground finds more super effective hits, but it doesn't factor in the Levitate on the Hydreigon, so kind of something to consider. Like you're still going to get wrecked by that Pokemon. But yeah, you're finding like crazy amount of hits right there, and then some supers on the fairy. So yeah, things to consider. But yeah, like I said, without an offensive item plus the Beads of Ruin, you're not finding a lot of neutral KOs, and even with like all the Terra-type shenanigans you can pull on this Pokemon, you're not finding a crazy amount of super effective hits either. So you can just kind of like get all this setup, end up hitting something for 80%, and then getting KO'd because you're at 25 because of the substitute. However, if you just lead with this Pokemon and they start off with a tank, and they're going for like some kind of setup or some kind of status, and then you just sub on them, that's enough to potentially win the game right there, because now you can just get a free hit, and that's what Chi-Yu needs to get those conversions. So the sub into a tank, one, shuts down that tank, which means if they come back in later in the battle and you can still sub, that's just your final pickup. That's pretty easy, and then it also lets you absorb a hit, so then you can get that extra like 2-shot you're looking for. And then there's also weird interactions with sweeper Pokemon, because the reason why you have the Salac Berry is just to make sure you're kind of faster than everything at the end of the day. So if you can predict a strong hit from the opponent, land in that like 20% range, and not need to sub to just get the automatic Salac Berry, well, you take a hit them with something, Salac Berry procs, and now you're outspeeding them next turn, and then you get the pickup, so you're going 1+ on the Chi-Yu. So you can find like a surprise 1+, you get a little bit of extra like security against tank Pokemon, but you are sacrificing the outrageous one-shotting special attack power this Pokemon has, but it's not really that outrageous because 100 speed is whatever. And then, as what I've been doing to find most of the power in Generation 9, like, it feels like I should appreciate the idea of subversion more, because that's what I'm about. I'm about digging deep into a Pokemon's moveset and finding the super secret crazy OP strategy. But when that's like what you need to do for 90% of Generation 9, it's not fun anymore. I'm not discovering anything. I'm like kind of having to look off of what was intentionally designed, because the intentional design is so bad. So how good is Subversion Chi-Yu? Well, I was kind of looking at it, I went, we have the Lava Plume, which has a 30% chance to burn the opposing Pokemon, which means they're doing half physical damage to you, which means like the low defense isn't the end. And you're also doing crazy damage because of Beads of Ruin and your natural special attack. So even uninvested, like, you're still looking at some really heavy hits here, and then softening up the opponent. Also, Snarl. It's like anything you outspeed, you get the status on them, take less damage, or you just lower their special attack, take less damage, and that Snarl is still going to sting. The Snarl is 3-hit KOing a Pokemon like Jolteon. So let's just take like a random 75, 80 or something. You're 3-hit KOing that Pokemon, which is like the average just random Pokemon, and then Lava Plume is 2-shotting. So anything you outspeed, you find the 2-shot on without having to like do all the choice specs and shenanigans. It actually feels like it works in a weird way. Now, you do have some RNG behind this one on the Lava Plume, but I mean, way too many games were won because of a clutch Scald that should have never happened, to the point where it just doesn't exist in Generation 9. However, it still lives on in Lava Plume. So Pokemon that can abuse that, maybe that's like the secret thing to bring back. Snarl just lets you win against special attackers, and then Dark Pulse, kind of the same idea. If the game is lost otherwise, why not just sprinkle in a 20% chance to win off of that flinch? And as we saw with the Lava Plume damage, it's a 2-hit KO. So you outspeed Dark Pulse, 20% flinch, Dark Pulse again, you win. But why is there Chesto Resto here? And this goes to the Subversion trying to find some strange power. Like, you have a rare utility sweeping Pokemon that can successfully get away with some shenanigans. So what you do is like you snarl a special attacker 2 times, or if it's a bulky one, like 3 times, and then you rest Chesto Berry, and you do it all over against the next Pokemon, because at -2 or -3, you're not taking damage from them, so you're still going to be at like 80% health, and then you can just set it up against the opponent. Maybe against a tank Pokemon where like there's weird stalling and recovery and they have no kill pressure on you. Maybe the rest into an Amoonguss just gives you the PP win. Even though you have like the Lava Plume into it. Not the correct example, but the correct idea. I don't know what scenario, but I've been in some ugly stall matches, so maybe the rest is just what you need to kind of win that out. And yeah, that's kind of it. Like a burn Pokemon, even on your low hit points defense. Max hit points kind of changing that, and then if like again, you can just reset it on the Chesto Resto maybe find the KO you didn't have otherwise, and then just kind of work into some other situations. Outside of Lava Plume, there is Will-O-Wisp. So, I mean, you can just tag that. Kind of hurts your coverage on Double Dark. I really like the Dark Pulse here too much to kind of re-seed in, like, the Flamethrower or the other thing. Heat Wave. We also have Confuse Ray. So, this Pokemon now has, like, no kill threat, except it kind of does, because you eventually just land enough snarls to where the opponent goes away. And against physical attackers, like, you outspeed them, Will-O-Wisp, Confuse Ray. If they do hit you, it's not going to be the worst. And if they don't, you're just kind of fine. And then you can snarl them down. So, I mean, like, you can get really annoying and really ugly on this Pokemon. As for where the success comes in, I think it was on, like, kind of the original moveset. As for other things we have Flame Charge. It's like, there's your Salac Berry. Like, do you just kind of play it the other way around where it's like, oh, Flame Charge, maybe you find a free turn, maybe you only take 50% into a special attacker, then you get away with the Life Orb, and hey, now we're finding KOs again on that +1, and in Battle Stadium, if you don't take too much damage from the Flame Charge, you just Life Orb. And even if you do take too much damage, like, okay, you Life Orb Dark Pulse KO, you Life Orb Flamethrower KO or whatever, and then you KO yourself because of the Life Orb damage, you just went 2 for 1. That's winning. That's big winning. Maybe that got rid of a threat because of that extra Life Orb damage. So if you can, like, find the Life Orb that works. We did talk about the benefits of Substitute into the way too many tank matchups and stally things that are happening. So this could also work. And then also Nasty Plot. You can go Sub... get rid of Flamethrower, maybe, for the Nasty Plot. And then, like, yeah, if you set up the Sub, I don't know what goes here. Maybe Salac Berry again. Because, like, yeah, Sub, Nasty Plot, they eventually break it. Sub, Salac, and now you're +2 special attack. That's mowing down everything. And then you also just have enough speed to be pretty hard to touch. Dark Pulse, Terra Blast. And then you want to go, like, Dark Fairy. And Dark Fairy is going to be good against everything except for Tinkaton, so you're fine here. Tinkaton sucks. It's not worth worrying about. Whereas if we go with the Dark Fire, like I said, we start to see a bit more common threats or some things that could actually get a bit more problematic. But Dark Fairy on the +2, I think that just KOs everything. So a few extra ideas to round out this Pokemon, but as you introduce more layers of complexity and setup, it can go more and more wrong. So it just kind of like shows the entire scale of this Pokemon. We have Unga Bunga, wall breaking, insane amounts of damage. We have more meticulous setup that you can add like more layers into to where, yeah, like Sub-Nasty Plot, game's over. Or maybe you don't do it like that and then you go Flame Charge Life Orb, try to turn it into more of a 2-for-1 Pokemon, or you just kind of get what you can off of the sub into the status Pokemon we're seeing, and then Subversion shenanigans that could just steal a win. And that's more fun, but it's also just kind of gimmicky. But it's always fun to kind of throw in the gimmicky set, because if you're going up against this and it's just the right amount of cheese to take out your ace Pokemon or do like a weird thing, or it finds the Dark Pulse, like, it's going to be the most upsetting thing to lose to, and it's actually viable in its own weird way. Maybe the Lava Plume. You're just like, well, I'm fine, and then you get burned, and then you realize, wait a second, I just lost to that 30% chance? That's stupid. Doesn't matter. Game's RNG. Game's stupid. Embrace stupid. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.